Hello, welcome everyone in another episode of Researcher Celebrity. And today we have Alison Julio from Brazil with us, and he'll be sharing. He just recently submitted his thesis and awarded. Now he's Dr. Alison Julio. Welcome, Dr. Alison, at Researcher Celebrity.
Oh, thank you, Raja. I really appreciate your invite. I didn't know that I was a celebrated in science, so it is very good to share with you and the people involved our thinkings, and it is really nice to know that you are interested in the people that has just completed the PhD, to know their opinions and to know their vision about science and the future in science and all the related progress in science to society and education. So I think that is pretty much the goals here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
really happy to be here.
It is a pleasure for having you here. And one of the reasons behind the concept behind Researcher Celebrity is we want to celebrate every single researcher. You are just completed your PhD, you are a doctor now, but at Researcher Celebrity, we even celebrate the master's research at any level of education. PhD obviously is a great degree to have and earned. You have earned it. So now let's start the conversation. And the first question is how and when you ended up being a researcher.
Well, I think that it is much more subjective, right? Because you don't need to be in academy to make it to do research. You are doing research in your house when you are looking and applying the scientific methods to try to answer any kind of question. And but today I think that most of the people go to academy to try to follow up a scientific career, and I did it. And initially, I make my undergrad in biology,
Mm-hmm.
but with focus in education because the idea was to try to teach biology for the people and for children, for example. And during the process, I just figured out that was pretty much very interesting to do the science per se and not only to teach the people about biology.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I get started to some small biology and especially animal genetics biology.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I get started working with insects. And for me, insects was very the most interesting species there because they're so much different and they have a huge impact in our life, in our society,
Mm-hmm.
because of uh, the high value that they have in our lives. For example, in agriculture, especially here in Brazil, because it is a country that has a very solid basis in agriculture. So the lab was interested about molecular methods or molecular mechanisms to confer insect resistance. And at that time, I was working, the lab was interested in a Lepidoptera species that was a pest crop in sugarcane that has an economic impact here in Brazil. So initially, it was like the questions were related to uh, how these insects get resistance to those insecticides. But during the time, I was getting interested about the molecular mechanisms and the genetics behind that. And I think that that was there that everything is get started, and I got interested about the molecular mechanisms related to that. And then it just guided me to make the master in insect molecular genetics related to insecticide resistance. But then I moved to another species that is a Tribolium castaneum. So it is a model beetle in insects and the model species,
Mm-hmm.
and was a genome completed at that time. Was just a few beetles with genome completed,
Mm-hmm.
and that it allowed us to get in the molecular mechanisms, and that was very interesting for me. And I think that the just get it started to look very close, and it gets so fascinated that I started to look for protein structure related to insecticide resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that at that time I was not only just making the biology, but also looking the questions with in a view of molecular and biophysics related to structural protein structure
Mm-hmm.
related to insecticide resistance in insects, especially in tribolium.
Mm-hmm.
And well, during that time, at that time, it was very interesting because we got modifications in development, in insect development, and it just I started to walk through different fields like molecular genetics is related to structural biology and also development.
Mm-hmm.
And it took my attention to go to my next step in the PhD that I had just completed, that is in developmental biology. So I had just changed the field, but it's still working with insects.
Mm-hmm.
So I just completed my PhD looking at the molecular structures, but also in another insect species model, the most classical one, the Drosophila melanogaster.
Mm-hmm.
So the the pathway
Mm-hmm.
was something like that. Just to get started trying to get into biology to teach, and then just discover that wow, it's so nice to make the science behind that we are reading in the books and teaching the people, teaching children in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
about biology.
Nice. So, as we can see that you are very fascinated about biology, especially insects, and from your bachelor's to master's and PhD, you studied different organisms. So, were there significant challenges when you were moving from one field to another, or it was a very smooth path for you?
Well, I think that it is smooth when you have uh, a question and not when you have a model. Like I am not studying Drosophila because it is Drosophila. It is I am studying Drosophila because Drosophila allow me to try to find the answers for my question, for my specific question. So all of this is based in your questions, how a model can provide you with some techniques and tools that allow you to try to interrogate
Mm-hmm.
your major problem. So when you are trying to focus on your questions and not your own system, like it is something that the people around me, especially my mentor, said is like do not focus in your model,
Mm-hmm.
to focus in your problem, trying to solve your problem, and see which model can provide you with the better fields or the better tools to try to get into that. So to trying to focus in your question and the problem and
Mm-hmm.
not your model, I think that is when you try to move to another model organism, it becomes everything more smooth, especially when we are in a lab with the bigger people about the Drosophilas
Mm-hmm.
and the Lepidoptera, whatever beetle, you're just you go smooth together with these people and collaborations that help you to try to get the everything from that model to try to answer your question.
Nice, nice. I think, as you mentioned about your mentor and how the way they look at the problem and the solutions, it reminded me a quote from Albert Einstein. He said, "We cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." So, what essentially you mentioned here is perfect, that how we have to think, not limit ourselves for the model organism, but it should be a question driven thing, and then you see that which model organism now suits best to answer your question. That was a
Yes,
very intelligent one, and I would
yes,
like to tell all our audience and viewers that what Alison said is essentially, it should be an integral part of when you are thinking of a research question and when you are trying to pursue it further, because that is how it should be.
Yes.
Let's talk about the journey of PhD itself. Obviously, because you were interested in research, you thought and you decided, and then you committed yourself for PhD. How was the journey, and how long it took for you to understand the question, or it was like it was your own question, or it was given by your mentor?
Yeah. So I think that the journey about a PhD, it is very interesting because for the people, for the audience here, I meet Raja during my PhD, especially during that time that I have spent in Ethan's beer lab in UCSD. And it is very interesting because it is related to the previous questions, with the previous question. Because you are, when you're trying to answer or to try to get into a specific question and apply to different, for instance, Haraja is trying to, was at that time, was trying to apply for a specific question in mosquitoes. And then he developed the system in Drosophila. So you're working with the Drosophila and trying to apply that to mosquitoes, and everything started, or I got involved in this project during my PhD and my sandwich in Ethan's lab. So I thought in my PhD, the question was related to DVX. So DVX, just for the audience, is the how the embryo knows where is the dorsal side, the ventral side, the anterior and posterior, basically where is the head, where is the tail should be formed. And all of this involves molecular biology and molecular genetics. And it is a very interesting point because it just combined it. My mentor in my PhD student, in my PhD thesis is Helena Araújo, and she's a master of molecular genetics in Drosophila and trying to apply this in evolutionary biology using other model systems. And when I got started, when I look in the research lines from Elena's lab, and I got it is perfect because combines what I really love is like molecular biology, structural biology, uh, molecular mechanisms governing development. Because when I look in my master about related to insecticide resistance, I just found in the end that that was changing development, and I just got wow! It is amazing how to observe and to follow up the development of an insect. And in Drosophila, you have so many tools to address some specific questions related to molecular mechanisms in development. And when follow up the Elena's lab research lines, she just combined it, or we combined it together in the same project, different fields. So we are interested to try to understand how a specific molecular pathway was able to say to the embryo, hey, here's the dorsal side, here's the ventral side in the embryo, and how two protein-protein interactions are required to do that, to make it, to say to the embryo, here's the ventral side. And to try to address that, we combined molecular protein. Basically, we're trying to understand the three-dimensional structure of specific proteins related to this signaling.
Mm-hmm.
And then we combined gene editing that and synthetic biology to try to make different modifications in these proteins to try to see how they interact differently and how this difference in protein-protein interactions change the pathway that leads to the ventral side and the dorsal side. So basically it was looks like it's pretty simple, but it took me 5 years to try to get something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, uh, I think that the most important thing is to how you develop it, some collaborations and interactions with people, and what you have learned. And the time that I have spent in Ethan Beer's lab was very productive. And I get back to Brazil, and everything that I have learned there, I am trying to teach to the people around me in the lab. I think that is the most important thing. Is not related only with the questions that you are trying to answer in your PhD or master, whatever stage of the career that you are, but how it can get directly uh, to the people around you. And I know the people that who are our audience knows that the lab is a small society. Everybody's there, just trying to to get some objectives, specific aims, or everybody there is talking and get different ideas, discussing every day, and this is basically a small society, and where everybody there is looking, okay, I want to see Drosophila, I want to see the beetles, I want to see mosquitoes. And that was a journey of 5 years that has just get finished. And I hope that to apply all these techniques, mechanisms that I have learned during the PhD to the next step, that is my postdoctoral research. So that's it.
Congratulations for your PhD, Alison. And now, during this stretch, as you said clearly, that it looks very easy, but it takes 5 years to answer that simple question, which is initially thought like, okay, it is easily doable.
Yes.
Were there any difficult times which you would like to share with the audience? Because what we know for sure is like PhD is not a very smooth walk for most of us.
No.
We all like it, we all admire it. That's the reason why we are there and we are pursuing our dreams. But what happens when things doesn't go the way we want? Or would you like to share anything about that?
Well, first of all, when you start to have the plan, the design, your project, as I said, it looks like a simple question, but it is not simple. When you get to try to answer that, of course, you sure to know that you are must be able to attend to address that question. But during the time when you start your PhD with a specific question, trying to get your objectives, in the end, you analyze the same objectives and you think, okay, that was much more deep than we initially thought. And I think that the most important thing here is, like you mentioned, not always the things get smooth. I think that the most of the part, it is not smooth. It's very hard, and it's like hardcore in the extreme level sometimes. And I think that the most important point here is when you look again to your question and you think, okay, now I think that I have a different way to address this question that I had planned before. So the only way that you have to realize this is through the process. So maybe in the middle of your PhD or in the middle of your project, you realize, based in fail every time, and you just get the insight. Okay, I'm doing this in this way, and maybe if I change something in the middle and the follow up in the plan B, maybe could be a solution. And when you do that and get success, that is the magic, where that is the moment where you, okay, I have learned something here and I can tell for everybody around us, and to spread this information the way how I can do to try to answer my question is not follow up in the initial plan, but changing it to a different direction. And okay, I got the question, and then just now I can spread out my information and how I did that in details for other people to make the same decision and get exactly, or maybe not, but I hope so, the same results that you get. And it is the key for science, the reproducibility that you have in your results, in making it in another lab, in another group, in different regions in the world. So I think that that's it, how you realize different ways to try to address your questions and get success on it. Sometimes you simply do not, you try to plan A, plan B, plan C, and okay, I tried all these plans and no one have worked at all, and still I can share this because the people that are gonna try to apply or to get answers about these questions, please do not follow plan A, B, and C. Try the plan D based on these attempts to address these questions. So I think that this is a very important way to think about a science and success in science.
I think that's how people describe research also. Like research is a different way. You have to have a different perspective, the way you look at it, because the questions doesn't, come from sky. They just don't shout. You think about it, and you think something which nobody has thought. That's way makes it your question and your research. And speaking of hard times, I believe hope is something which is it's not only about research. Hope is something which sustains the entire life of any human being on this earth. And what I believe is like there are so many things which have been said about hope, and hope is something which is such an energy that and it can ignite or illuminate any dark part of life. So it is not only for researchers, it is for everyone, that always carry hope. If some things are not working today, doesn't mean that it won't work. You might need to tweak a bit, as Alison said, plan ABC. You have to understand what are the methodologies which you using, and you might need to change a bit. And then who knows, that click, and then you are successful in your experiments, and now you're ruling the world with your results by sharing it. Following up on, as you said, about publications, and then the world knows you, don't you feel a celebrity when a person in northern Europe or in Southeast Asia or in Asia, where you have never been, and you might not know the names of the countries, and still their people know Alison, Julio from Brazil because they are reading your research?
Wow, that is amazing. I just, I think that for me, I have interviewed a professor in my graduate program about science and career in science, and something that he told me was so much inspired me, and I follow up that is, what is success in science to you? And he said, Rodrigo Martins is his name. He said, well, success in science, in my view, is when you address a question, you have the answer, and you publish that, and a person in another side in the world, he doesn't know you or she doesn't know you, and he replicates your experiment, your methodology, and he or she got exactly the same result. And okay, and then you that person, okay, I got this by making the same steps that Alison did, and I
Mhm.
just got the Alison publication seated, and okay, I have a person that seated my work, my discoveries, and they got the replication of that. And at this time, this is success. You have follow up a scientific question, you got the answer, you just share with the scientific community, and they got that replicated, and they just follow up and got more discoveries related to that field. For he said, for me, this is scientific success, and I agree with him, and I have follow up this in my PhD and now in my postdoctoral.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I think, Alison, what you mentioned is exactly something what Mr. John F. Kennedy has said once, that we must find time. We must find time to stop and thanks those the people who have made significant contributions in our lives so that what we are today because of them, and acknowledging your mentor, acknowledging your friends, family, all of them is very important part. And now speaking of a bit different from a research field, about your friends and family, and what was their role of you being a researcher?
Wow, you know, it is very uh, interesting to me this kind of question because you know many people in academy doing science, they especially in Brazil, they are coming from, in last years, they are coming from parents that they were in academy, and it is not my position here. My parents, they is, for example, they do not completed the graduate. They are, so they do not have anything related to academic fields, but they didn't know they knew that the way how you can to provide a better life to your children is to make it the better education, and still they do not have the graduate or academy life science or a scientific thinking about it.
Mhm,
uh, he just provided us the education, and we just follow up, and we have made it the, and in my for my instance, the science and how the science works. And I think for me is pretty much the inspiration. It is not, I'm not coming from an academic family,
mhm,
but still it is like provided the education, and it is like inspire me. Like my parents working 24 hours every day on the weekend, just to make the better for his children and provide the better education.
mhm,
So for me, this is my inspiration even in science. It is
mhm,
not related specifically as you told about research,
mhm,
but it's how you can, you know, provide your better environment to share your ideas,
mhm,
and it is something that is essential in science. As you told before, you have to have a plan A, B, and C, but not always. You just figure out for yourself, okay, I have a plan B, okay, I have a plan B, C. No, you are talking every day with the people around you to think together and then figure out a possibly plan B.
mhm,
So I think that this is something that I have learned with my parents, is to share your ideas, to have a very friendly environment to talk, because it is basically what we do every day in the lab, is talk, and talk about ideas, talk about not only research. Please don't think that the people in the lab just talk about research. We talk about everything and discuss about everything, society and science, of course, but pretty much more, and jokes. I think that everybody needs jokes and to get happy during the time, because as I said before, I think that more than 90% of the time we just failing in the lab and trying to make it an experience that just don't get in the way that we thought that it could be. And we just to have if you are in a friendly environment
mhm,
and sharing your ideas and sharing your failures, and
mhm,
it is okay to share your failure, it gets more productive, and to trying to figure out other solutions, of course, always talking with the people around you.
mhm. And speaking of which, the environment of the lab is one of the key ingredients when you are thinking to join a lab for your PhD. All the audience, I request you, take your time. If there is an opportunity, go visit, meet the people who all the fellows are working, at different levels. Some of them might be graduate students, some of them are just they're pursuing their master's thesis. Interact with them. If you feel that you are well suited, well fitted in that lab, consider it. But if you think that that is not for you, there is no harm in just throwing yourself, because it is a big commitment. When you are going to stay in a place for around 3 to 5 years, you should be, the first thing, as Alison said, you should be happy in that group. You should feel good. You should feel belonged there. Because if you feel an outsider, then staying there for so long time will be a tough part. And especially when experiments are not working, if you are not able to talk to someone else, it is another burden. So give the due thought the time it takes, because it is a big thing. And if at any point of time you feel that, okay, this is not for you, then also go talk to your peers. It can be your family, friends, it can be any one of us. And there are now organizations are like Empowering Sense Foundation. If you feel that you are facing a problem during your PhD or during your research, or if you feel that you have a thing that which you feel that it is disturbing your mental health, we are there to help you. You can contact us, and we can put you in contact with researchers like Alison from around the world, who have a vast variety experience which they bring when they join Researcher Celebrity, when they stand with us with Empowering Science Foundation. We pool all of this for you so that you can get benefited for all of them. Alison, coming back to the question of family, friends, and researchers, we have done that part. If I have to ask Alison that, summing up your experience in research till now, which is almost a decade, including your bachelor's, master's, and PhD, what are the suggestions or key ingredients you want to suggest for an upcoming researcher who are considering to be a PhD student?
Well, I think that the main one is the curiosity. Like, what do you have read it about it, and you just think, okay, this is pretty much it. I think, for example, I have to give you my example. During my bachelor, I was reading molecular biology books, and I was just go into that. That was okay, it looks like a different word. It looks like a pretty much amazing word, and it was so much interesting to read about it, and that just gathered the curiosity about it more related to that. And in my case, it was just molecular biology, but I think that in other examples like social arts or humanities, when you're reading about it and when you're learning about it, and you have the feeling, the good feeling, so I want more. I want more about it. I want to learn more about it, and that you have to, like Raja said, we spend so much time in lab. We have spent much more time in lab than sometimes we have spent in your life, in your house with your family. And in the end, your lab is like the first house that you have, and the people that you live, that you live there, is like your first family almost. So you have to have this happy happiness to read about it, and to the curiosity. I think that this is the most important suggestion. It is something that you read and you do, and you feel okay. It like feels me, you know. It's like something that you feel much better after doing that, or about to reading about that, and talking with someone in the lab, for instance, when you have the first contact. And it is something that you're gonna feel. It's like a good feeling. It's like, okay, I think that this person is amazing. It's like wow. It's just wow. And you got, okay, I wanna to spend more time here. and to, it is like a process. You just go there 1 week and 2 weeks, suddenly, okay, I have spent 1 year here, and it still feels me happy in here. So I think that that is the most important thing. You not get started your PhD just now. You have time for experience. Okay, one lab, another lab, different research line, another different research line, completely different from that one. And okay, I think that it is something that I want to spend. It's like the main point is, like, in the end, okay, I think that I can spend 5 years of my life here trying to get into this. This is my suggestion. If you find out something like that, I think that you would do well your project, your PhD time, to try to learn more about it, something.
Nice, nice. Thank you, Alison, for sharing your journey. And now we are at the end of the conversation. We always ask people, like, now, do you feel research as celebrity, Alison?
Well, if you are telling me that, okay, I am the research celebrant, I believe you, Raja. I, we have a very good relationship, and okay, Alison, it is a important science foundation research celebrity, and as you mentioned it, I think that this initiative is amazing, because you are not a celebrity in science just because you have a Nobel.
Yeah. Yes.
It is not true. It is not true at all. People that don't get the most important grants, or you don't need to have that to make a celebrity in science. You're a celebrity in science because you're doing science
Absolutely.
just for this, and that's it. What that we are doing, and I think the most point here is to have, like, employing what you have learned in science to our country. I am here in Brazil, in a developing country, and I hope that what we have learned can to be, go through the society around us, and this is the most important point
Thank you.
for the science and celebrities in science.
Absolutely. You are a researcher celebrity for us, and for always you will be. And now, at the end of the conversation, I would like to thank Alison for taking time out and sharing your journey with us.
Well, thank you, Raja. I would like to thank you for such initiative. I think that is something that, like, you have just, and during this time that we are talking here, you have just given so much suggestions. I like I would like to have something like this when I get started my undergrad, for instance, to have, listen people around the science, and okay, you can talk with us, and it
Yes.
is no problem at all. It is fine, and we are here to talk about it.
Yes.
And I think that is the key, to have science in the academy go outside the academy, to talk with the people that are basically funding our work. And we have uh, to spread the information, and to convert the science and what you're doing in the labs to the society that basically they are funding our projects. And it's because of them that we are doing this. So I think that this kind of initiative that go out, you know outside the walls of academy, it is always welcome, and
Yes.
you have doing a very good job in this initiative. I would like
Thank
to
you.
thank you, Raja.
Thank you. Appreciate it. For all our viewers, this is a researcher celebrity episode. We will meet you in another episode of Researcher Celebrity. And I would like to leave all of the audience with a thought: with the same boiling water that softens the potatoes, hardens the egg. It's about what you are made of, not the circumstances. So never blame circumstances. Always stand high, keep your attitude great, and we'll meet you all in next episode of Researcher Celebrity. Thank you, Alison. Alison. Bye bye.
Hey, Coraja. See you.